So, the BBC has got a bit bored. They're overfunded, and lots of people on the internet are saying things that they don't like. So they've only gone and done what any authoritarian country decides to do when the public are saying things that they don't like. They have unveiled a Ministry of Truth. BBC News has unveiled BBC Verify to address the growing threat of disinformation and build trust with audiences through transparency. Disinformation. BBC. How long before the war on disinformation becomes a new war on terror? This fight against disinformation has been going on for about 10 years or so now. Now, I don't know about you, viewers, but disinformation these days just seems to be one of those words used in order to specifically invalidate counter theories to their own narrative. Think of it like sticking a bad smell on something, so that in the public mind, whenever the word disinformation is used, it's something that is bad and evil, and something that only bad and evil people do, and then you label anything that you don't like disinformation. In other words, another way of shutting down debate and discussion. So they have a new disinformation correspondent, Mariana Spring. Imagine that as your job title. I'm a disinformation correspondent. Never heard of this person, never heard of anything that they've done, never heard of any qualifications that they have that make them an expert at dealing with disinformation. What makes her so special that she gets to decide what is and isn't disinformation? Especially when it's got the BBC seal of approval. Because the BBC has never once ever told a lie in their history. In fact, from a certain point of view, you could say her job description is to disinform. So let's see what they have to offer quickly.
To BBC Verify, like you said, we are a team of investigative journalists here at the BBC. We are also a new brand, and we are a physical location above the newsroom in London. And the point of the team, as you said, is to verify video, to fact check, to counter disinformation, and to analyse really complex stories so we can get to the truth of what's going on.
Okay, so that's who's doing it. The BBC in the BBC building, in the BBC newsroom in London. Well, I definitely trust them. Like I said, when have they ever lied to us? So how exactly are they going to do this? What expert strategies and methods and tools have they got in their arsenal to combat disinformation?
I'm going to give you a bit of a flavour of the kind of work that the team are doing. So we're able to look at maps to geolocate specific situations, stuff that's going on. And this is just a map of central London where we are now. And this is the broadcasting house where I'm speaking to you from. And it's not so important perhaps for the centre of London, but it is when we're analysing war zones or what's happening in hard to reach places. And there's a story on the BBC website today. It's looking at Russian fortifications on the front lines in Ukraine, and you can read more about it there.
So you're going to be looking at Google Maps and reading articles. Have you any idea how many YouTubers and TikTokers who specialise in commentary do this already? How stupid do they think the public are? They couldn't possibly look at a map or read an article. God. In the grand scheme of things, BBC, you're offering literally nothing. Oh, and you're paying for this with your taxes. In fact, I would hate to imagine just how much these people are being paid to do this. But there's more.
Other ways that we also are able to interrogate what's going on, including on social media. I have some undercover accounts that I've set up for the BBC's Americast podcast, and we use these kinds of undercover accounts, and these are the characters that the accounts belong to be able to really understand polarisation online and how what's happening on our social media feeds and what we're being recommended and pushed to us can affect all of us. And they don't offer us a totally exhaustive insight into what's going on, but they can help us understand just how social media works.
So if you do happen to be a bit of a dissident online and you say naughty things or edgy posts on Twitter, chances are you might end up having a conversation or an interaction with one of these fake accounts. And these people definitely do not have your best interests at heart. But did you just admit you are going to be in some ways psyoping and gaslighting people? And then on the other side, how many people who are dissidents have not already done this and are still doing this to this day? Using fake accounts to get close to their political opponents? Again, that's nothing. That's nothing. Oh, look at me, I'm being a progressive in progressive corners, or I'm being an ultra-right-winger in ultra-right-wing circles. Look, am I supposed to be impressed? Like, anybody can do this. Literally anybody can do this, and not to mention people probably already do this. Look, what are you actually offering that the average person with a smartphone can't do themselves? This is not groundbreaking journalism. This is mediocre. You're basically just copying the FBI or the CIA at this point. So before we wrap up, what is the purpose of this? Well, let's hear what she has to say.
At the moment, I'm investigating the UK's conspiracy theory movement. I'm trying to understand more about how it's evolved and intensified since the pandemic here in the UK. I'm looking at the alternative media that finds itself at the heart of this movement, and a conspiracy theory newspaper that's a part of that as well. I'm looking at the way that alternative media is funded. I'm looking at its impact on local communities. I'm looking at its connections with far-right figures, and also its foreign links. That's for a podcast series that will be coming out in June.
The mischief in me wants to know, how do I get officially labelled as alternative media by the BBC? But what the fish is conspiracy theory newspaper? I can tell you one thing, it's definitely not going to be the Daily Express, even though it should be, considering they put out about 20,000 headlines a week about how the world is going to end. But let's have a look at this. What you can see here is exactly why everybody hates the BBC. They're essentially trying to highlight a group of people, and by extension society, whom they want to censor, cancel and shut off from the public discourse, which is then inevitably going to go underground and fester completely unchallenged in an echo chamber, like everything always does when it is cancelled. So conspiracy theory newspaper cancelled, whatever that is, alternative media cancelled, UK conspiracy movement cancelled, far-right links cancelled. I mean, considering everybody who is opposing Sadiq Khan's ULEZ right now is considered far-right by Sadiq Khan himself, so that's a large section of the population cancelled. Foreign links, well, we all know what that's going to be, don't we? For the last 7 or 8 years, they've been labelling anything as, oh, you're funded by Russia. You're basically Russian propaganda outlet. Which, let's be honest, is complete BS, because I personally don't think that Russia can afford to fund anybody right now, considering they're throwing everything they have at this war in Ukraine. Ultimately, why are they doing this? It's because that's their competition. Alternative media is literally their competition. That's why they're doing it. Can we defund the BBC yet? Can we abolish the licence fee? Because I guarantee you, if these guys were not being propped up by the taxpayer, they would collapse. And in my view, that would be the market working as intended.